Lamborghini, it's a badge synonymous with super fast, super selfish, supercars. But this is a Lambo like no other. It is the Urus, the company's latest foray into the SUV segment. And we've come to Rome, to the Vallelunga circuit, to see if it can fuse the pedigree and performance of the brand with everyday practicality and real-world driving.
The Urus's arrival into the growing luxury SUV space was inevitable, considering the huge popularity for high-riding soft-roaders around the world. But its purpose is twofold. Just as Porsche did with the introduction of the Cayenne 15 years ago, the Urus is intended to double Lamborghini's footprint, making it more profitable and sustainable over the long term, which in turn will ensure it can create high-tech replacements for the Huracan and Aventador super sports cars. Unlike Porsche though, Lamborghini has been here before and claims to have created the super sports utility vehicle more than 30 years ago with the LM002. That was a hulking off-roader developed out of a stillborn order as a military vehicle for the Libyan armed forces in the early 1980s. Just over 300 were built for civilian use, where it earned the nickname Rambo's Lambo. Fast forward to today and the Urus is a vastly different beast. Underneath its bold design, it shares the fundamental basics with the likes of the Cayenne, the Audi Q7, Bentley Bentayga and the upcoming new generation Volkswagen Touareg. Now that all begs the question about whether this is a legitimate Lamborghini. And first impressions are, well, it can't hide the fact that it's an SUV. You're certainly sitting a lot higher and you have a lot more space around you than you do in the Huracan or the Aventador. But you also sit a lot lower and there is a much more sportier ambience than in any other SUV that I've driven. For starters, it looks like a Lamborghini in front of me. It has this great digital dash that has the Lamborghini interface with the digital rev counter, and it's also multi-themed, so depending on what mode you're in, it changes its look and feel. Steering wheel is great, although it does look like it's out of an Audi Q7 with a Lamborghini badge on it. And this center stack here, well, it's really quite modern. It's got great resolution, high definition screens for both the audio, the sat-nav, and then this sort of multi-control area here for the air conditioning vents and the vehicle settings. It's also really stiff compared to what you'd normally expect in a large luxury SUV. But that kind of lends the bit of character that Lamborghini is trying to introduce into this car. It does have air suspension, so the ride is reasonably compliant, but it still patters over really high frequency bumps, and that does tend to bring all the other elements of the car, making it a little bit noisy. However, just driving it around normally, it's actually really quite refined. In Strata mode, which is the street setting, the engine is quite lazy and effortless. It's just got a nice little subtle V8 burble to its exhaust note, and the steering is relatively light and quite soft. Same with the throttle response. But then, at the touch of a button, well actually a flick of a lever in this case, because down here is the driver control settings where you can basically go through what's called Strata, Sport and Corsa modes, the regular tarmac settings. But in street mode, as I said, relatively and hugely refined. It's quiet, it's comfortable, and it's got this nice little underscore of a V8 burble to its exhaust note. Then at the flick of a lever, put it into Sport, and everything comes a little bit more alive. There's a lot more energy to its character. The V8 sounds a bit more menacing. It's got a nice little crackle on the overrun, and the throttle's a little sharper. The suspension, well, it is even stiffer again, so you couldn't necessarily drive it around every day, particularly in these European country roads with it like this, but you do have also the option to tailor the chassis settings in terms of the all-wheel drive and the bias between the front and rear diffs, the steering weight and the suspension, so you can suit it to your own needs. One little gripe I do have about this Anima lever system is you can't actually go backwards, so if you're in sport mode you have to go through all 6 of the settings to go back to street. Annoying, but you get used to it. Surprisingly, even though it has the lowest roof line in any SUV on sale at the moment, it's actually not too bad for space either. Lamborghini says those about 6'3" will sit still relatively comfortable in the back. And there's plenty of leg room, plenty of knee room, and you could genuinely drive a family of 4 in a Lamborghini across the country. The boot space is also pretty generous. At just over 600 litres, Lamborghini says it can fit 2 golf bags or 8 cabin trolley bags, so reasonably flexible and practical as well. Under the bonnet, it breaks new ground too, with the first turbocharged engine ever fitted to a Lamborghini. It is powered by a version of the Porsche-developed 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that helps it deliver an impressive set of numbers. We're talking peak outputs of 478 kilowatts and 850 newton meters, acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.6 seconds, and a top speed of 306 kilometers an hour, making it the fastest SUV on the planet. As for how it drives, this engine is supremely flexible. As I said, quite lazy and effortless when it's in this strata mode where you can literally cruise along, barely ticking over at 1100 RPM and reasonably quiet. But with 850 newton meters of torque, this thing is absolutely epic. Listen to that, that's where it literally lives up to that Lamborghini sports car. I mean, it's got huge reserves of power, it's super fast, and it's got a great exhaust note. But it wouldn't be a Lamborghini if you couldn't take it on the track. Man, that engine is so flexible. As I said, reasonably refined, super effortless and nice and lazy out on the street. But on a racetrack, an SUV, this thing, oh my God, it is amazing. Now, it uses a whole bunch of electronic trickery to basically ensure that it feels like a sports car when you're in this environment. There is electronic roll bars that keep it nice and flat. Lamborghini has gone to excessive degrees to lower the weight and lower the center of gravity of the car, and it's got tight air suspension, so the thing is absolutely chuckable and it's got so much grip. Of course, you can't change the laws of physics, and it is a big car and an SUV. So it does tend to understeer a little through, the tighter bends, but what a car. This is amazing. The fact that it comes with standard carbon fiber brakes as well is obviously a huge benefit when you're up it for the rent. And it wouldn't be an SUV if you couldn't take it off the beaten track too. And this is something you could never have done in any Lambo before. It's like a monster truck met a rally car. And modern electronics play a huge role in the Urus's off-road abilities, with 3 unique settings: Sebbia, Terra and Neva, which is Italian for sand, gravel and snow, that tailors the air suspension, ESP settings, engine and gearbox to suit each individual environment. And man, what fun! You can chuck this thing around, let the tail hang out and send rooster tails flying into the air from all 4 wheels.
So what's the verdict on the Urus? Is it a real Lamborghini? Well, absolutely. It's a fantastic performance car and a luxury SUV all in one. Essentially what it is the Lamborghini of SUVs.